Hi, I'm Dan Morris, a very good friend of Mike Adams, and he's visiting us, and we wanted to talk about radio and all of the things that led to it. I was very, very fortunate. My father was an electrical engineer during the Second World War, and his project at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, his team was to develop things that they would throw out of bombers so they would throw off radar so that the bombs could be dropped and the plane wouldn't be shot at. He brought a lot of electronic equipment home as a result that they had tested, and they were going to throw it away, so he brought a bunch of it home. And so it was around the house, and sort of got used to it, and it was kind of interesting. Didn't know what I was doing. I did join Junior Achievement back in the 50s when I was in high school, and we had a radio company. A lot of different companies in Junior Achievement do different things. They bake, or they sell cameras, or they whatever. And we had a 15-minute radio program every Sunday on a local radio station. And as a result of that, I was on the radio back in 55, 56, 57, 58, right around in there. And then off to Ohio State as a freshman. I was very, very, very fortunate to get an on-air position with WTVN. It all started at a 5,000-watt radio station, and I worked from 6 o'clock at night till 2 o'clock in the morning. And I must tell you that the 8 o'clock morning classes were really tough. But I was able to get through college paying my own way. Record hops were $50 in town and $75 out of town, and that's when I would buy my books. And sometimes the books were a little late if the hops weren't coming in real well. So off to WTVN, working those 8 hours, 5 days a week, and then Sunday mornings. And it was everything. I covered city council, I was a newscaster, a news writer, I was a disc jockey mostly, and I really learned a lot of different things at a different level. Off to WCOL after WTVN, because we had a wonderful top 40 format that we put on for a year, but the salespeople just absolutely didn't understand it and couldn't sell it at all. So they changed formats and got rid of all the air people and kept the salespeople. So off to a little 1230 on your AM dial station with simulcasting the FM and on the air from either mornings or afternoons, whenever my classes fell. And so I do 2 or 3 hours of production. That's where we recorded all our commercials, because all our commercials were recorded. And they were put on a thing called a cartridge, which I doubt if you've seen, but they're about this big, and it was a forerunner of the cassette. And they were, when they first came out, the cartridge machines were very, very difficult and very, just a lot of trouble. So from a disc jockey to production director to program director for many years, then I went into sales because I wanted to learn that part of the business. And then I went back into programming for a period of time. And then the manager retired, and I luckily was named manager of the station. And there were 5 stations in the company in 5 different cities. And I think one reason that I was able to achieve the manager's chair is that we had an attempt, because of the nature of the manager I replaced, an attempt by the associates, the air people, to form a union. And my assignment from Cincinnati headquarters was to work with the attorney from the law firm, and he would give me directions, and I would get people to talk about what was wrong at the radio station. And believe me, that's the best thing that we can do, is get that stuff out. And I got it all out, and they voted 21 to nothing. and did not join a union. And I was very, very happy that night, because that was a long road and a great experience, because people have to realize in management that they are managing and working with, and that's the key, people of all sensitivities, people of all enthusiasm for what they're doing. And in radio, as well as television, it's people, period. We have equipment coming out all the time that's making the job easier and better, but it's people. And a lot of management forgets that people are such a vital, vital part of what makes all of this work. The WCOL was a 250-watt radio station. When I was in radio, when I first started in radio, the transition was just beginning, because television had just really taken its hold, and we had to reinvent radio, because we were still doing some block programming, 15-minute newscasts, 15-minute sportscasts, half-hour pre-produced mutual newscap for the day. We had to get away from all of that, and that's when Top 40 radio was invented. And WCOL was one of the first top 40s, frankly, in the country. And even though 250 watts, you couldn't hear it in the northern part or the southern part of the city, and especially when there was a lot of noise in the air and static and so on. But the format was so pure and so good, and the music was so well selected. The disc jockeys, air talent, we were limited to time, temperature, weather forecast, title artists. Frankly, that was it. No personality, no jokes, no fun, just keep it moving. And we would run one commercial between each record that we played. So we'd play maybe 12 records an hour, and we'd have 12 commercials an hour. Therefore, it wasn't 3 or 4 commercials in a row like we do today, but it was one commercial, and maybe the weather forecast or whatever, but it moved. And the station was very popular. And then the England invasion was just remarkable. That was such a great time. The Beatles, of course, were first in, and we would call it the post office's special delivery when a new Beatles single would come in. And I remember when Yesterday and all the Beatles songs would come in separately before the albums were ever put together, and you would play that thing every hour. Every Beatles song we got, maybe every other day, maybe 2 times a week, but it was a big deal, and we really made a production out of it. And then, of course, the other English artists started flowing in, and Top 40 changed because the nature of the music changed. Steve Jost was our program director, and I think I was production director. And he said, I have a young man here that's going to start next week, and he needs a radio name, because radio names, I didn't change mine, but a lot of people did. And so we went to the phone book, and we found a radio name that we thought would just be great, Mike Adams. And it was from the telephone book, so there's another Mike Adams in Columbus. We hope he's still alive. But it was a great radio name, and we to this day talk about it because of the fact that we came up with someone's name, and that's kind of unusual and a lot of fun, and we're very, very proud of Mike and everything he's done from his radio career, where it took him through education and really contributing to young people and making their life better, maybe their career much better. Because I think when people work the business and then go teach it, they really have the true feel. So many people teach radio, television, film, never did it. And if you didn't do it, you didn't know the pressure, and you didn't know the shortcuts, and you didn't have the fun, and therefore Mike has been able to contribute very, very much to young people over these years, and I think that's just great. And he came to visit us today. He lives about 8 hours away from us, and we're going to see more of him because it's going to be fun. Eventually joined Nationwide Communications, owned by Nationwide Insurance, which is a huge insurance company headquartered in Columbus, Ohio, and they put me in charge of their station in Columbus, which was doing very, very well. And that was going into a very tough situation because the station was doing well. And here I am, the new manager, and thank God it all kept doing very, very well. And later, a few years later, I was promoted upstairs to the Eastern Coast Vice President, and I had stations from Minnesota to Florida to Baltimore, 3 in Cleveland, 3 in Columbus. So I had about 12 stations. And here again, you're dealing with people. You did not manage the managers. You did not tell them what to do. You merely talked with them and helped them through those things, either by phone or in person. And I felt the in-person trips were important. And that's where you get to meet the staff, talk with the staff, show a corporate presence that I think is important, because many times, and I don't know what it's like today, but I think with the fact that we've diversified into so few huge broadcast companies, that I have no idea how they're doing that, and I don't think very well. This collection of stuff was basically in my office, and when we did some remodeling, the on-air sign is from the 40s. And it was obviously hand done, and it's been dropped and broken, so I have to get it glued by a professional. But it was in the station, and when we remodeled that area, they bought a new new on-air sign. This is an on-air sign from a CBS station, I believe, in Philadelphia, and maybe the microphone too. This is a little board that I used when I was with the insurance company, and I would produce tape that we needed for the meetings and for everything that we needed tape for. And this was really something when spring 1995 Arbitron, and WNCI was a 9-3 in the spring, and WCOL was an 8-9. What a race. This was my father, my brother, he died at 61, my mother, who died in her 90s of Alzheimer. My wife gave that to me, all these different things, my father's ID from right field, and here's the old WCOL building with that huge monstrous sign. And this was the main part of the building, and this was all rented out. Here's Carol now.
Oh, are we talking?
We're
Yes,
rolling.
we're on camera.
Do I have lipstick on?
Yes, you do.
You look lovely. This is the. How long have you been married to this guy?
50, going on 51.
I'm really quite worried, because I think social media are going to absolutely take the punch away from the radio stations, FM included. Radio revenue is supposed to be off about 2 to 5% in next year. Television's going to be up a little bit. Newspapers are kind of fading away. Things go in cycles. Things replace different things of entertainment. That's all changing. I truly believe that you could take a radio station in a small town, a medium-sized town, and really play the town, and you just concentrate on that town so much and do radio shows, music shows from restaurants in the morning, for example, for breakfast, and get so involved in the community that you are the place that people went. We have radio stations in some cities where there's no one in the station, and if a tornado warning is made, there's no one to put the tornado warning on the air. That's very, very scary. So I have no prediction as to only negative until something comes along that causes this massive change, and it will take a massive change with all the social media that we have. I think the most important part of being a good broadcaster is not only understand the broadcast business, knowing that it's very fragile, knowing that ratings drive revenue. A lot of people don't realize that. The other thing is, when I was in management in radio, the Federal Communications Commission was very strong on involvement with the community. It was mandatory. So I was on many nonprofit organizations, many times ending up as chair of the organization. And the list is pretty long after so many years. But that gave me such great exposure to the community, great exposure to wonderful people, and it helped the radio station because on the business level, you represent the radio station. So when you went to fundraisers or concerts or whatever, that the company, that you would represent the company, it was you who was in those organizations that knew these people that were there. And it just went hand in hand, and I think being involved in the community is a major responsibility regardless of FCC, and I think they've kind of let that go. But to get involved, not to kill yourself, not to take so much time away from your job that it gets dangerous, but the involvement is so important, and the radio station can help the organization. Yeah, I really enjoyed my career very, very much. I was in one of the golden years of radio, golden era. The other golden era was before television, where all the half-hour mystery shows and quiz shows and live shows and Art Linkletter and blah, 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 Godfrey and so on and so forth. That was a great era, but it was all national. It wasn't local radio. The local stations were carriers. They merely carried the network. If they had CBS, they carried everything CBS had, including afternoon soap operas, etc. If I went back into radio, I'm afraid I am done. I'm finished. I enjoyed it, had a great time. After I did about 45 years in radio, I went to work for an insurance company that I used to be on its board, and I had about 14 different departments under me. And I was able to do things that you could see the results of quickly. When I went there, one of the first things I did was put a newspaper. Every night a new sheet would go next to the elevators in a frame. 8.5 by 11, a lot of white space, quick to read while you're waiting for the elevator. And every night, the writer who put it together and gathered the news and made it easy to read and had some fun with it, and he would put it in at 6 o'clock at night when the building was quite empty. And every once in a while, when I was leaving, because I'd leave about 6:30, I'd catch someone reading tomorrow's news. I said, "You cannot read tomorrow's news. It is against the regulations here." But that was a little thing that it just became huge, and it was such a factor in the company. We had quarterly meetings we would have 3 different meetings in one day with a third of our staff, and we'd repeat the same meeting, of course, 3 times. And when I first went there were always a lot of questions for the president. He had a Q&A time toward the end of the 1-hour presentation, and after the newspaper was up for maybe 2 months, the questions ended because they were getting all the news that they really, truly would want to know about their company. And that was a thrill to see that happen. Yeah. I'm very satisfied with what I did, and I'm probably very smart to have moved from Columbus, Ohio to California, because it removed me from all of those channels that I was tied to, all those different organizations, and here I'm virtually doing nothing.